Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if you walked into your own home and heard your name spoken like a warning by the person you trusted most? I thought I was just coming home early with groceries, ready to surprise my husband with his favorite dinner. But the moment I heard my name in that tone, I realized I'd spent years ignoring the signs that something was wrong. This isn't just a story about suspicion or betrayal. It's about the moment you finally listen to your instincts and the courage it takes to face the truth, even when it means risking everything. So settle in, and if you've ever wondered what you'd do in my shoes, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened next changed not just my marriage, but the way I see myself forever. The day I came home early with groceries and heard my husband say my name like a warning, I realized I'd spent my whole life hoping love would be enough to keep us safe. It started with a list. Not the kind you scribble on a napkin, but the kind you keep in your head. Eggs, milk, bread, his favorite coffee, the little things that make a house feel like home. I'd left work early, the sky heavy with rain, the city already slowing down for the weekend. I thought I'd surprise Tom, maybe make his favorite stew, light a candle, remind us both of the life we'd built together. The grocery store was quiet, the aisles full of familiar faces. I chatted with Mrs. Novick at the bakery counter, picked out a bouquet of wildflowers, and lingered over the apples, remembering the way Tom used to slice them thin and sprinkle them with cinnamon for dessert. I drove home with the radio low, the rain tapping on the windshield, my heart full of small hopes. I thought about the weekend ahead. Maybe a movie, maybe a walk in the park, maybe just a quiet night in. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the laughter and the tears, the way Tom still kissed me on the forehead every morning, the way he always made sure my car was full of gas. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Tom's car was already there. I smiled, thinking he must have come home early, too. I grabbed the groceries, juggling the bags as I fumbled with the keys, the rain soaking through my coat. The house was quiet, the lights low. I set the bags on the counter, shaking the water from my hair, listening for the sound of Tom's voice, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the heater. That's when I heard it, my name, spoken low and sharp like a warning. Anna. I froze, my heart pounding, the hair on the back of my neck standing up. I heard another voice, softer, unfamiliar, a murmur I couldn't quite make out. I stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts. Tom, I called, my voice trembling. There was a pause, then the sound of footsteps, hurried and heavy. Tom appeared at the top of the stairs, his face pale, his eyes wide. Anna, you're home early, he said, his voice tight. I forced a smile, trying to steady my hands. I thought I'd surprise you. I brought groceries. I was going to make your favorite. He nodded, his eyes darting behind him, his body blocking the doorway to our bedroom. Everything okay? I asked, my voice soft. He hesitated, then forced a smile. Of course, just finishing up some work. I nodded, but the doubt lingered, sharp and insistent. That night, as we ate dinner in silence, I watched Tom closely. He was distracted, picking at his food, glancing at his phone every few minutes. I tried to make conversation, to ask about his day, to share a story from work. But he barely responded, his answers short, his smile forced. After dinner, he disappeared into the garage, saying he had to fix something on the car. I cleaned up alone, the house too quiet, the air heavy with things unsaid. I lay awake that night, listening to the rain on the roof, the creak of the old house, the distant sound of Tom moving around downstairs. I thought about the way he'd said my name, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd blocked the bedroom door. I realized then that sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones who keep the biggest secrets. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is listening to your own heart, even when it breaks. If you've ever felt a chill in your own home, or if you want to see what happens when a woman finally trusts her instincts, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever walked in on a secret you weren't supposed to hear? I read every story, and you never know who you might help by sharing. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Tom moving around the kitchen. For a moment, I let myself believe everything was normal. I listened to the familiar clatter of mugs, the low hum of the radio, the soft shuffle of Tom's slippers on the tile. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the routines we'd built, the comfort of knowing someone so well you could predict their every move. But as I walked into the kitchen, I saw the tension in Tom's shoulders, the way he avoided my eyes, the way he flinched when I reached for the sugar bowl. "Morning," I said, forcing a smile. He nodded, his voice tight. "Morning, did you sleep okay?" I shrugged, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Not really. The rain kept me up." He grunted, his eyes fixed on the newspaper. I sat at the table, watching him over the rim of my mug. I tried to make conversation, to ask about his plans for the day, to share a story from work. But he barely responded, his answers short, his smile forced. After breakfast, Tom left for work, his goodbye kiss quick and distracted. I watched him drive away, my heart heavy, my mind racing. I thought about the way he'd said my name the night before, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd blocked the bedroom door. I tried to shake off the doubt, to focus on my own day. I cleaned the house, did the laundry, watered the plants. I called Ruth, needing to hear her voice. "Anna, you sound tired," she said, her voice full of concern. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I am, Ruth. Something's wrong with Tom. He's distant, distracted. I feel like I'm losing him." She was silent for a moment, then said, "Trust your instincts, Anna. You know him better than anyone. If something feels off, it probably is." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I just wish I knew what to do." Ruth's voice was gentle. "Be patient. Watch. Listen. The truth always finds a way out." That afternoon, I went for a walk in the park, the air crisp and cool, the leaves just starting to turn. I watched the children playing on the swings, the couples strolling hand in hand, the old men playing chess under the trees. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the love we'd shared. I wondered when things had changed, when the distance had crept in, when the secrets had started. When I got home, I found Tom's phone on the kitchen counter, buzzing with a new message. I hesitated, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. I knew I shouldn't look. That trust was the foundation of any marriage. But the doubt was too strong, the fear too sharp. I picked up the phone, my breath catching in my throat. The message was from a number I didn't recognize. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. M." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. I scrolled through the messages, my hands trembling. There were dozens, some short, some long, all intimate. Plans to meet, confessions of affection, inside jokes I didn't understand. I felt sick, the truth settling over me like a cold wave. That night I tried to act normal. I made Tom's favorite dinner, set the table with candles, put on the dress he'd always said made me look beautiful. I smiled, laughed, tried to pretend everything was fine. But Tom was distant, distracted, his eyes never quite meeting mine. He ate quickly, barely tasting the food, then disappeared into the garage, saying he had work to do. I cleaned up alone, the house too quiet, the air heavy with things unsaid. After Lily went to bed, I sat on the porch, the stars bright above me, the air cool and sweet. I thought about the message on Tom's phone, about the secrets he was keeping, about the life I thought I knew. I realized then that sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones who keep the biggest secrets. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is listening to your own heart, even when it breaks. If you've ever found a message you weren't supposed to see, or if you want to see what happens when a woman finally trusts her instincts, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever discovered a secret that changed everything? I read every story, and you never know who you might help by sharing. The next morning, I woke with a heaviness in my chest that wouldn't lift. I moved through the house in silence, making coffee, feeding the cat, watering the plants on the windowsill. I tried to focus on the small comforts, the warmth of the mug in my hands, the sunlight streaming through the curtains, the sound of birds outside. But Tom's message echoed in my mind, sharp and unyielding. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was overreacting, that maybe M was just a friend, a colleague, someone from work. But the doubt lingered, a bruise that wouldn't fade. I spent the day watching Tom more closely. I noticed the way he avoided my eyes when I asked about work, the way he changed the subject when I mentioned the weekend, the way he always seemed to be in a hurry, always on his way somewhere else. I tried to tell myself it was just stress, that he was doing his best, that he'd come back to me as soon as things calmed down. But the ache in my chest grew heavier with every passing hour. That afternoon, I decided to surprise Tom at work. I baked a batch of his favorite cookies, wrapped them in a clean towel, and took the bus across town to his office. The building was newer than I remembered, the lobby full of people in suits, the air thick with the scent of coffee and perfume. I asked the receptionist if Tom was in, and she smiled, her eyes kind. "He's in a meeting right now, but you can wait in the lounge if you'd like." I nodded, taking a seat by the window, watching the city move outside. I thought about the years Tom and I had spent building our life together, the sacrifices we'd made, the love we'd shared. I wondered when things had changed, when the distance had crept in, when the secrets had started. After half an hour, Tom appeared, his face surprised to see me. "Anna, what are you doing here?" I smiled, holding out the cookies. "I thought you could use a treat. I was in the neighborhood." He hesitated, then took the cookies, his smile forced. "Thanks, honey, that's really nice." I watched as he glanced over his shoulder, his eyes scanning the room. I wondered who he was looking for, what he was hiding, what secrets he was keeping. We sat together for a few minutes, making small talk. Tom was distracted, checking his phone every few seconds, his answers short and vague. I tried to ask about his day, about his plans for the weekend, about the message from M, but he brushed me off, saying he was busy, that he had to get back to work. I left the office feeling more alone than ever. That night, I called Ruth, my voice trembling. "Ruth, something's wrong. Tom's hiding something. I found a message on his phone from someone named M. He's distant, distracted, always on his phone. I don't know what to do." Ruth was silent for a moment, then said, "Anna, you need to trust your instincts. If you think something's wrong, it probably is." I nodded, wiping my eyes. "I just wish I knew how to find out the truth." She sighed, her voice gentle. "Be patient. Watch. Listen. The truth always finds a way out." The next day, I started paying closer attention. I noticed the way Tom's phone was always on silent, always face down on the table, always locked with a new passcode. I noticed the way he left the room to take calls, the way he deleted his text messages, the way he flinched when I asked about his plans. I started keeping a journal, writing down everything I noticed, every late night, every missed dinner, every strange phone call. I wanted a record, proof that I wasn't imagining things, that I wasn't going crazy. One evening, as I was cleaning the living room, I found a receipt tucked into the couch cushions. It was for a hotel across town, dated 2 weeks earlier. The room was booked for 2, the bill paid in cash. My heart pounded as I stared at the receipt, my mind racing. I thought about the message from M, about the way Tom had been acting, about the secrets he was keeping. I realized then that sometimes the truth is hidden in the smallest details. That night, I confronted Tom. "Tom, I found a receipt for a hotel room. Who were you with?" He froze, his face pale, his eyes wide. "Anna, it's not what you think." I shook my head, my voice trembling. "Don't lie to me, Tom. I saw the message from M. I know something going on." He looked away, his jaw clenched. "I can't talk about it right now." I felt a wave of anger, sharper than anything I'd ever known. "You owe me the truth, Tom. After everything we've been through, you owe me that much." He was silent for a long moment, then said, "I'm sorry, Anna. I need time." He left the house, the door closing softly behind him. I sat on the couch, the receipt in my hand, the house too quiet, the air heavy with things unsaid. I thought about the life we'd built, the love we'd shared, the trust we'd lost. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is face the truth. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. The days after Tom left, the house, were a blur of worry and waiting. I moved through my routines like a ghost, making coffee, feeding the cat, watering the plants, but everything felt hollow. I kept the receipt in my pocket, a constant reminder that my world was no longer what I thought it was. I tried to keep things normal for Lily, making her breakfast, helping with homework, reading her stories at night. But she sensed the tension, the way I jumped every time the phone rang, the way I stared out the window long after dark. Ruth called every evening, her voice a lifeline. "Any word from Tom?" she asked, her tone gentle. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "Nothing. He's not answering my calls. He's not coming home." Ruth sighed, her voice full of sympathy. "You're not alone, Anna. I'm here, whatever you need." I tried to believe her, but the loneliness was overwhelming. One afternoon, I decided to clean out the garage, hopping to find some distraction. As I sorted through boxes of old tools and holiday decorations, I found a stack of Tom's work files. I flipped through them, looking for anything that might explain his behavior. Most were boring: spreadsheets, invoices, project notes. But at the bottom of the pile, I found a folder labeled personal. Inside were more receipts: restaurants, hotels, gifts. Some were months old, some just days. There were notes in Tom's handwriting, reminders to call M, to pick up flowers, to book a room. My hands shook as I read through them, the truth becoming impossible to ignore. I found a photo tucked into the folder, a picture of Tom and a woman I didn't recognize, sitting together at a restaurant, their heads close, their smiles secret. She was younger than me, with dark hair and bright eyes, her hand resting on Tom's arm. I felt a wave of nausea, the room spinning around me. I sat on the floor, the photo in my lap, the world suddenly too small, too cold, too full of lies. That night, I called Ruth, my voice shaking. "I found a photo, Ruth. It's Tom and another woman. He's been lying to me for months." Ruth was silent for a long moment, then said, "I'm so sorry, Anna. You deserve better. You always have." I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "I just don't know what to do. I feel so lost." She sighed, her voice gentle. "You're stronger than you think. You'll get through this, and I'll be here every step of the way." The next morning, I woke to the sound of the doorbell. I opened the door to find Tom standing on the porch, his face drawn, his eyes red. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence between us heavy. "I'm sorry, Anna," Tom said, his voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you. I got lost. I made mistakes. I didn't know how to fix them." I looked at him, my heart breaking. "Who is she, Tom?" He looked away, shame coloring his cheeks. "Her name is Melissa. She works with me. It started as a friendship, but then, I don't know, I was lonely. I felt like you didn't see me anymore." I felt a flash of anger, hot and sharp. "You felt invisible. I've spent years holding this family together, Tom. I've spent years making sure you and Lily had everything you needed. And you repay me by lying, by sneaking around." He shook his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I'm sorry, Anna. I really am. I never wanted to hurt you." I stood, my hands shaking. "But you did. You hurt me. You hurt Lily. You destroyed the trust we built, the life we made, the family we promised to protect." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Don't. I need time. I need space. I need to figure out what comes next." Tom left the house, the door closing softly behind him. I sat at the kitchen table, the photo in my hand, the house too quiet, the air heavy with things unsaid. I thought about the life we'd built, the love we'd shared, the trust we'd lost. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is face the truth. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. The days that followed were a blur of tears and anger, of sleepless nights and long walks in the park. I tried to keep things normal for Lily, but she sensed the change, the way I jumped at every sound, the way I cried in the shower, the way I stared at the phone, willing it to ring. Ruth came by every day, bringing food, laughter, and the kind of comfort only a sister can give. We sat on the porch, watching the sun set, talking about everything and nothing. "You did the right thing, Anna," she said, her voice gentle. You stood up for yourself. You set boundaries. That's what love looks like. I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. I just wish it didn't hurt so much. She hugged me, her arms warm and steady. Healing always hurts, Anna, but it's worth it. One evening, as I was rocking Lily to sleep, she looked up at me, her eyes wide. Is Daddy coming home, Mom? I hugged her, my heart breaking. I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you. She nodded, her arms tight around my neck. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Lily, always. As the weeks passed, I started to find my footing again. I went back to work, spent more time with friends, started volunteering at the community center. I found comfort in the small things, baking bread, planting flowers, reading stories to Lily at night. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to move forward, one day at a time. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. The weeks after Tom's confession were some of the hardest of my life. I moved through the days in a fog, doing my best to keep things normal for Lily. I made her breakfast, packed her lunch, walked her to school, helped her with homework. I smiled when I needed to, laughed when I could, but inside I felt hollow, as if a part of me had been carved out and left empty. Ruth was my anchor. She came by every evening, bringing dinner, stories, and the kind of comfort only a sister can give. We sat on the porch, watching the sun set, talking about everything and nothing. She reminded me that healing takes time, that forgiveness is a process, that love is sometimes the only thing that can hold a family together when everything else falls apart. One afternoon, as I was cleaning out the attic, I found a box of old letters. Notes Tom had written me when we were first married, cards from birthdays and anniversaries, scraps of paper with silly jokes and promises. I sat on the floor, reading each one, letting the memories wash over me. I remembered the man I'd married, the man who'd made me laugh, who'd held me when I cried, who'd promised me the world. I realized then that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about letting go of the pain, about choosing to move forward, about finding peace in the midst of chaos. Tom called every few days, his voice full of regret. Anna, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. I want to make it right. I listened, my heart aching. You can't undo what's been done, Tom, but you can be a good father to Lily. You can be honest. You can try. He promised he would, and I believed him. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because I knew that holding on to anger would only hurt me more. Lily struggled with the changes. She missed her father, missed the way things used to be. She asked questions, hard ones, honest ones, but she never stopped loving him, never stopped trusting me. We created new routines, movie nights with popcorn, Saturday morning pancakes, long walks in the park with Daisy. I watched her grow braver, kinder, more resilient, and I knew I was doing something right. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Tom stopped by. He stood at the edge of the yard, his hands in his pockets, his eyes full of hope and fear. Can I come in? He asked, his voice trembling. I nodded, my heart pounding. Of course. We sat together, the silence between us heavy. I want to try again, Anna, Tom said, his voice soft. I want to be a better husband, a better father, a better man. I looked at him, my heart full of love and pain. It won't be easy, Tom. It will take time. It will take work. But I'm willing to try if you are. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. I am, I promise. As the months passed, Tom and I worked to rebuild our marriage. We talked more, listened more, made time for each other. We went on walks, cooked meals together, laughed at Lily's antics. We learned to trust each other again, to lean on each other, to forgive. The baby thrived, his laughter filling the house, his first steps celebrated with tears and cheers. I felt myself coming back to life, my confidence returning, my sense of self growing stronger with every passing day. One afternoon, as I was planting flowers in the garden, Tom came outside, the baby toddling behind him. Anna, look at him go. Tom laughed, pride shining in his eyes. I smiled, my heart swelling with love. He's growing so fast, I don't want to miss a moment. Tom hugged me, his arms strong and steady. We won't, not anymore. We watched the baby chase butterflies, his laughter ringing out across the yard. I realized then that the home I'd fought so hard to protect was more than just walls and windows. It was the love we shared, the memories we made, the family we built together. Ruth and I grew closer, our bond deepening with every shared meal, every late-night conversation, every moment of laughter and tears. We talked about the past, about the future, about the ways we'd both changed. I realized then that the legacy I was leaving wasn't about money or possessions. It was about resilience, about forgiveness, about the quiet strength that comes from loving and being loved. As the seasons changed, so did our family. We grew closer, stronger, more connected. The wounds of the past faded, replaced by new memories, new traditions, new hope. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to move forward together. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. As the years passed, the pain of Tom's betrayal faded, replaced by a new kind of strength. Our home became a place of healing, of forgiveness, of second chances. Tom and I worked hard to rebuild what we'd lost: trust, laughter, the quiet comfort of knowing we could weather any storm together. There were still hard days, still moments when the old wounds ached, but we faced them together, hand in hand. Lily grew into a bright, compassionate young woman. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and never lost her sense of wonder. She asked hard questions, demanded honest answers, and taught me that love is sometimes about letting go and sometimes about holding on tighter than ever. Ruth remained my anchor, her wisdom and humor a constant source of comfort. She and I started a tradition of Sunday dinners, inviting friends and neighbors, filling the house with the sound of laughter and the smell of fresh bread. We shared stories, swapped recipes, and celebrated every small victory. One spring, Tom and I decided to renew our vows. It was a simple ceremony, just us, Lily, Ruth, and a handful of close friends. We stood in the garden, surrounded by blooming roses and the people who had stood by us through everything. Tom looked at me, his eyes full of love and regret and hope. "I promise to be honest, to be kind, to be the man you deserve," he said, his voice trembling. I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. "I promise to forgive, to trust, to love you for who you are and who you're still becoming." We exchanged rings, laughter and tears, sealing our promises with a kiss. After the ceremony, we gathered around the table, sharing a meal, telling stories, making new memories. Lily gave a toast, her voice clear and strong. "To my parents," she said, raising her glass, "for teaching me that love is messy, that forgiveness is hard, and that family is worth fighting for." We laughed, we cried, we held each other close. As the sun set, I sat on the porch, watching the sky turn gold and pink, the air filled with the scent of roses and the sound of laughter. I thought about the journey we'd taken, the pain we'd endured, the love we'd reclaimed. I realized then that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing to move forward together. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. Sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones who test our strength the hardest. I never imagined that coming home early with groceries would be the moment my marriage began to unravel, or that a single word spoken like a warning would lead me down a path of heartbreak, truth, and eventually, healing. But life has a way of showing us that our worth isn't measured by how much we give up, but by the boundaries we hold and the love we fight to protect. If you've ever felt a chill in your own home, or if you've ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal, I hope you know you're not alone. I know what it's like to sit in the quiet after everyone's gone, to wonder if you did enough, if you loved enough, if you mattered enough. I know what it's like to feel the ache of old wounds and the hope of new beginnings, to want to hold on and let go at the same time. But I also know that healing is possible. That courage is a choice you make every day, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in ways that change everything. I know that you can be broken and still be whole, that you can be pushed out and still come back stronger, that you can be overlooked and still be the heart of your family. Would you have confronted your partner? Or would you have kept the peace for the sake of your family? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story because sometimes sharing our pain is the first step toward healing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest heartbreak, you can still choose to begin again. And if you want to see what happens when a woman finally chooses herself, or if you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because the next story might just be the one you need.